Alright, hello and welcome to my walkthrough slash let's play of Europa Universalis 3 Divine Wind. And I've kind of noticed that there aren't really that many let's plays or walkthroughs of Europa Universalis 3, especially, with Divine Wind on the latest beta patches and stuff like that. So I've decided to may as well do one, throw one up there on YouTube, and hopefully I'll be able to help out more like newbie players to learn out the game and maybe provide some entertainment for more veteran players as well. So I've been trying to decide which nation I'm going to play as, and I've came to the decision to play as England, and there's a couple of reasons for that. Firstly is that you get all the advantages of being part of Western Europe, but at the same time you're kind of locked on this own island, and since England started with they started with the most powerful fleet in the game, so it's pretty much invulnerable to land invasions. Secondly is that once you've secured, United Kingdom and formed that nation, you have the chance to really do whatever you want. You can try and take as much as continental Europe as possible, or you can, just solely focus on expanding out into the New World in India and places like that. So it really gives you, a whole breadth of possibilities, and you can really do what you want. So, before I get started, you might notice on the side here there's different scenarios that aren't really there on the vanilla Divine Wind, and that's because I'm running a patch called Misc Mods, which is free, and I'll put a link in the description so you can download it and install it for yourself. And all it really does is just give you a lot more historical depth to the game. Like in the vanilla, when you play as England, you can't form the Anglican Church, but in Misc Mods you can. And this applies to stuff like Sikhism in India, which isn't in the vanilla game. And on top of this adds loads of more new events and adds balance to all the game units and stuff like that. It's really just a great mod to get, and I'd advise you to get it before you start playing as well. So let's just get started. I'll load up a save game that I've already started with England. I haven't done anything. I haven't even played like an extra day onwards, but when I get in the game, I'll show you a reason for that. Okay, so here we are. If this is your first time playing, you might be quite confused about what you're supposed to do. So the first thing I'm going to do here, along the side here, you've got lots of map modes, and this lets you see like what's going on in the world. So here, if you change to political map mode, you've got all the various countries in the game. So here's what England owns, kind of what is modern day England and a bit of Ireland, and in the near future we'll be expanding out to take all of United Kingdom itself. So the reason I loaded up the same instead of just starting a new game is because if you go to the menu where you click the shield here and go to see, you'll see a thing called current mission. Now I know this feels a bit gamey, but what you want to do is make sure you have this mission here called Conquer Ireland, because basically it gives you a reason to conquer like all of Ireland right at the beginning, and you get like an extra whole bunch of new territories as well. So it's really the best mission to start off with, and that's what I'd say you should do. If you don't get it straight away, just resign and start a new game until you get it. It won't take very long. Okay, now that's out of the way. I really should explain, all the aspects of the user interface. So starting from the top left, here you've got manpower. Now manpower is when you're recruiting troops in your territory. Each armies here are made up of 1,000 men regiments, and this applies to footmen, cavalry and artillery. So you can see I've got 19,000 here. That means I could recruit 19 more regiments. Moving on, you've got your national stability. This is kind of just, as the name implies, pretty much the general stability of your realm. You always want this as high as possible, because you can see down here that it gives you loads of benefits like revolt risk, merchants, compete chance, your tax modifier, which is the most important, and yearly magistrates. And you don't really need to do anything to increase it, but there are a lot of things you can do to speed it up, because it always increases on its own. The max level you can get is +3, and the lowest you can get is -3, so you want to always keep it as +3 as much as possible. Moving on now, you've got your prestige, and if you've played other Paradox games, this will be very familiar to you. And this is basically your standing in the world. You know, what other countries think of yours. So it's kind of like how glorious your nation is, and that can be increased by a lot of things, like winning loads of different battles, or you know, forcing a peace treaty on your opponent in a war, and lots of other things like that. There's too many to go into now, but basically, obviously you want this as high as possible. Because as you can see again, it gives you loads of different benefits, like stability cost, and spy defense, and trade income, and loads of things like that. Next here, you've got your infamy. Now infamy is kind of like the opposite of prestige, so the higher prestige is the better you see in the world, the higher your infamy, you know, that's like how untrustworthy you seem, how evil you seem. So the higher your infamy means like other nations will declare war on you because they think you're evil and you're taking up too much territory at once, and things like that. And basically the main way that you're going to gain infamy is when you declare war on an opponent and then like you decide to take loads of territory from them at once. So that's something you've always got to keep in mind, and make sure it doesn't go above your limit there, which you can see for Britain is 34. And there are lots of things you can do to, you know, decrease it faster and increase the infamy limit, but we'll go into those later. Moving on here is your yearly legitimacy, and this is basically because most nations here start out as a feudal monarchy. It basically means how legitimate is your heir to the throne. So the higher it is, that means like the better claim that they've got on their own throne. And this isn't the most important thing, but it's definitely helpful to have it at the max it can be, which is 100. And you can see here this has effects as well, which is like your tolerance of heretics and heathens, and your stability cost and your revolt risk. So it's always nice to have it as high as possible. And once again, there are lots of things you can do to change, you know, how fast it goes up or down, but we'll go into those later. Now moving on here is, these are kind of like units in the game, but you know, they don't appear on the map and stuff like that. The first you've got is merchants, and you can send these out to compete with other merchants and, you know, boost your trade income and stuff like that, but we'll go into that a bit later. Next you've got colonists, and this is fairly self-explanatory. Now, because when you zoom out you can only see, you know, so Europe only knows really about Europe and not much else, but obviously you know that America's across here, and you know, Africa's down here, and Asia's across here. But basically when you see them, there'll be loads of unoccupied provinces. Like, they'll look the same as these, only they'll be grey because they have no colour because no one owns them. So what you do with these is basically you send them out. Oh, here's one here. This is what like an unoccupied province looks like, and you can send out colonists here. Like, you click that button there, and then it tells you how long it takes. That's the chance of them succeeding. That's how much it costs. So we won't really be using them for the first 100 or so years until, you know, the New World gets discovered and things like that. Next you've got diplomats, and basically you use these for, this is your way of communicating with other countries. Like, if I want to say declare war on France, you know, you'd click on one of their provinces, then down here you've got loads of different options you can do, like declare war, have a royal marriage, offer an alliance, offer a trade agreement, things like that, and all of these cost diplomats. And you can see already, like, we already gained +5 a year, so you don't really need to worry about the number because there'll always be quite a few of them. But remember, for all these units here, the max you can have is 5, so keep that in mind. Next we have missionaries, and if you go back to the map modes here where you've got a few, the one next to political here is religious map mode. So if you click on that, you can see what the religion is of loads of different territories. Yellow is Catholicism, this kind of brownish colour is Orthodox, green is Muslim, and this reddish here is like pagan and things like that. One moment. Sorry about that. And yeah, so every time you capture a province and it's not like of your state religion, you can send a missionary there, and over time it'll eventually convert that province. So it won't be very important now because things will stay Catholic for quite a while, but you know, when the Protestant Revolution comes around and we start conquering other territories, maybe like Muslims in North Africa and stuff, you'll want to use these to convert the provinces, because you don't really want to own a province that, you know, is of another faith. Because otherwise you get like loads of different negative modifiers and things like that. Next in here you've got spies, which is pretty obvious what they're going to do. You can send them to other countries and they'll do loads of actions like incite rebellion and things like that. They're not really that important. Out of all these, they're probably the least important. I don't really use them very often, but the option is always there. But to be honest, they're not really that useful. And finally here you've got magistrates. These sound a bit confusing at first, but basically what you use them for is building provincial improvements. Like if I go click on London here, you see to the side you've got all these buildings, and you have to build that, and you have to build them in order. So like if I want to get to town hall, you have to build the courthouse, then the spy machine, then the town hall. And to build these, it costs money, but at the same time it always costs one magistrate as well. So they are really valuable because you don't really get that many of them, and especially when you take a time and start building loads of buildings, you need to decide which buildings are the most valuable to produce. And finally, to the right here, you've got the date and the year. So in Europa Universalis 3, the time goes by like every day. So it'll go to 15th October, then it'll go to 16th October, and then to the right you've got the year as well. And these two little buttons here, the plus and the subtraction, basically means increase the rate at which that time goes by. So you can fly through the world and have like one day takes like every 30 seconds and stuff like that. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Now you see here below where all our units are, these are like just various options that you've got. Like here you can change a slider, you have a free advised slot, and there's some dispute succession. You don't really need to worry about these, we'll explain them in a minute. Now to the top right, here you've got just kind of like a tooltip that shows you all the things you've got to see. You've got a tab for armies there, which shows you the 2 armies that I've got, and centres of trade, which we'll explain in a minute. And you can just, if it gets too big, you can just turn it off and off by clicking that button if you want. Now to the bottom right, you've got the Holy Roman Empire, which I won't go into this part because it's kind of a complicated thing, and when you're playing as England, you really don't have to worry about it right now, so just ignore that. And then here you've got the papacy. Now it looks complicated, but it's not very. Basically you've got other countries have all these cardinals here which they send to the papacy, and if you control that, then if you have the most cardinals there, you'll become the papal controller, and that lets you excommunicate other countries and things like that. It's not really that important. You don't really need to focus attention on it, and just leave it for something like later on. Under that you've got triggered modifiers. You don't need to worry about that, that's not really that important. And you've got history, which is as you go through the years and you get different kings and queens and stuff like that, it'll tell you what they've all done. It's kind of interesting, but you don't need to look at it. And here you can just click that button and it'll take you to your capital province, which obviously ours is London. And then here this will take you to your national focus, which I'll explain in a minute. And then below that you've got obviously the menu to change any options and quit and things like that. And then below that you've got your ledger, which basically what this is, it goes through loads of different statistics and graphs and things like that, which show you what the world's like around you. So you can see here we're on nation statistics, and you've got all the nations of the world. Oh, what have I done? Just go back to England. If you go back on here, you've got all the sticks.